To begin with, I would like to introduce all our guests. First of all, we have Samriddhi Shoor, the founder of Griffin, the director of Aegon Aerospace, Metaverse Council trustee, and also XR Web 3.0 investors. So she started the career in 2016 with exports management for special grade alloys, steel, automotive, defense and nuclear machine component trade and manufacturing management. Worked as a blockchain developer for 3 years. Worked as an NFT based asset researcher for a Switzerland based art investment company, co-founded the House of Griffin, and currently serving as the president of Indo-Austrian Business Council under Women India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. R. Rajkumar, he is working as a faculty in School of Computing under Data Science and Business Systems at SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Chennai, India. He is passionate about training, writing, research and development. He is excellent at strategy and policy making. His expertise in artificial intelligence, brain computer interface, e learning technologies, and virtual reality goes unmapped. His patent works are published in Intellectual Property India. His research work has been published in various international journals and presented across various national and international conferences. We have Abhishek Tomar. He is a research scientist with 20 plus patents in his name. He is the co-founder and CTO at Ajna Lens with 7 plus years experience in this company. He has been the lead technical director at Red Chilies, the head of technical support at Zion Media Labs, and also the design manager at Mexus Education Private Limited. He is passionate about technology and has developed a lot in the past. Today's discussion is impact of XR or the role of XR in the education sector. And since we are talking about education, I would first head towards Rajkumar ji to understand how he thinks that is XR playing an important role in transforming the way we are currently learning or might be learning in the times to come. Over to you, sir.
And thank you, Krishna. Yeah, initially I start with our learning style of what we are doing it right now. Our learning start initially with storytelling. I mean, our mother is giving some stories, and through that we learn our language skill and our observation, everything learned from that way only. And schooling, we started learning with the auditory as well as the visual learning. And slowly we have to move for effective learning. That's we call it as experiential learning. Only the way we have to get some experience, then we can able to learn it. So each and every subject we can teach through the experiential learning. So that's the way our VR and AR and XR platforms are now emerging for the purpose of to give a complete and effective content for experience learning. Actually, we do research in experience learning. What kind of the customization we have to do, especially for the people they who know something basics. So how to start with the intermediate directly, and if they know already intermediate, then they how to start directly to the advanced concept. So these are the challenges actually right now as an industry as well as the academia we are facing it. So we can have a fruitful discussion. Over to you, Krishna.
Great, rightly said that we have always been learning through the concept of storytelling, but there is something that is lacking in the current education system, maybe. Because of that, we are not being able to map the skills that are required in the industry, or maybe because of that, there is an employment gap or there is a skill gap that we say precisely. So I would head over to Abhishek and ask him to share his views on this aspect, as in how does XR create or bring back the essence of storytelling in learning or make it immersive, as Rajkumar ji rightly mentioned.
Yes, thank you, Krishna. So the same what the sir said, like how we started our learning from childhood, from mothers or grandfathers, grandmothers' stories, and then slowly we take in the school and then college, and now we get into the jobs and experience and base more on the experiential side. Only the few people remember their school syllabus or the college syllabus. It is just a stair. People have used it and then reach to their wherever they wants to be. Uh, Only few people use their education to at par, like a complete. So there is the problem, because whatever we are learning so far, for example, if we are learning a bicycle, or if we are learning a swimming, or if we are learning anything which is sports, or where the physical or the mental, everything is get involved, we get uh, like our prefrontal cortex start developing, right? And that's where the problem is. The education where currently which we are doing, if we see a Dale's cones of learning, if we see that cone, if we read, only 5% of our brain get attention, or it get into their memory, or we can able to focus only the 5%. And if we go towards writing, it's start increasing. If we start communicating, if it start more increasing. And the current era where we are is a more video based. So if we see the videos, or we see the simulations or something kind of thing, we see only and hearing it, it only use our 50% of our brain, and still our prefrontal is not completely involved into that. So we did a research, and then we moved towards more how we can make it more use of our brain, more involve of our brain. It's basically like a meditative. So if you are in a meditative state, you just need a fraction of second to learn something. Might be everybody have got when they are interested in some topic, or when they are involved in some sports or some activity, they get immersed into that. And as they immerse into that, they're all the sensory as well as their thought level involved in those education, and they learn so fast. So we created this XR, which is basically the simulation based learning. A simulation based learning means experiential based learning, similar like how we did the cycling. If we learn the cycling from book, right? If we learn the swimming from the books, how well swimmer we all you can imagine, right? So that's where the education is. For example, the beautiful constructions around us, the all the interiors, exterior, you might be have seen somebody's craftsman work around you, right? So they all did this engineering. There is a mathematics behind all the craftsmanship which is happening around us, but they are not doing it practically. They are not using, for example, those who have manufacturing all these things, or in the machine level or in the computer level, definitely they are using the machine learning, or program, or a mathematics around that. But human, those who are developing all these things, they are learning something else in the school, and in the college they are learning something else, and when they get the job, they are doing something else. That's a huge thing which is creating a problem. It's a skill gap. They are not skilled enough what they are doing it. And if we are doing it with the experiential based, like what we are doing in cycling, it's the same way. If we wants to learn something, or it's the same way like how we are doing with the vocational training in an ITI and all. They want to learn some craftsmanship, or carpentry, or they want to do the welding or painting or shipbuilding or engineering, aircraft, aeronautics. All these things are the subjects in the big colleges also, but they don't have a practical ground. For example, somebody wants to learn about aircraft engineering or aeronautic engineering. They don't even have the infrastructure to learn all these things. So how they are learning? They are learning through diagrams. They are learning through books, text and all. If they start experiencing it, and doing a practical. So most of the people have did practical in physics, practical in biology, practical in chemistry. Very rare students are there who score very less or in that. Why? There is so much practical involvement into that. It's like learning while doing. So learning while doing is the biggest gap in the skilling. So we have created an ecosystem called Ajna Vidya, where they will get into the system and they are learning while doing, which will fill this skill gap.
So true. Learning by doing is actually the concept that we need to focus on. And yes, we can recall the time when we were learning cycling and we might have failed, but it is all because of those failures and that practicing one time and again that we have those things registered in our brain. So the one topic that we talked just touched right now was the learning by doing principle or the immersion. So I would now ask Samriddhi ji to share her views, like what does learning by doing means for these students right now, and how will it impact them when they start shifting towards an education system where they are more engrossed in doing things practically and not just theoretically. So what are your views on that aspect?
On this topic, I'd like to say that more than learning by doing, which is definitely one of the most important element of having XR in the education space, I believe that every single revolution in the technology itself, every advancement is a way of democratizing the education system in some form. So if we look 20 years back, education was still very much regimented to people who had the resources and means to acquire it. And 10 years later, we have internet, we have YouTube, we have content creators who are creating so many different things and sharing so much of information, so much of knowledge, that now we need a filter to actually filter out all the important news bits and everything that they share with us, to filter out the noise. So I believe that XR is going to do this very same thing for us. It is going to democratize the way we learn certain skills. Like Mr. Abhishek just said, that it would help craftsmen to work on their art rather than just learning about it in the textbook, or maybe people who are working on designing aircrafts or designing equipments would be able to actually manufacture it in, like, using the XR environment, using the XR tools. However, it's worth noting that from my experience, from where I've been working with Metaverse Council, with Griffin, and all the other XR companies that are there in this space, we have been believing that more than VR and AR, which is an advancement in extended reality, the next big step would be from the side of Neuralink. So that's how we perceive extended reality to be. It would be like a projection within the mind. So the way you have dreams, the way you're able to do everything in your dreams, you're able to work, walk, feel, sense every single thing that occurs there. You would be able to entirely visualize that kind of reality using simulator, human brain chip interfaces, and other things. And that, by being able to create a completely different reality for yourself, is the truest form of extended reality. Now, in that sphere, I don't think that education would be the only space that would be getting the benefit out of it, but it certainly would be the one which would be driving the best outcomes. Because a person who can be in a place, for example, it would be very much close to what we call right now teleportation. So you don't really have to be anywhere in order to understand what the environment is going to look like. That is going to be true if you want to study a mine, a volcano, or even space. You can just simulate the entire environment if you have the right parameters, and you will be able to manipulate a lot of different functionalities and physics of that area as well. So that being said, I think that XR has a very big role to play. It is going to be potentially the next biggest revolution that the human world is going to see, because being able to create reality was something that only God could do. But now we will be able to do that, so it's something that we should be worried about. So using it ethically and morally would be one thing that educators would be responsible of doing. But apart from that, I think there are many interesting things that we would be looking at in the next maybe 10 or 20 years.
So true. XR is definitely the fundamental technology. And you rightly pointed out the fact that You should be worried about how you would be using. But more than that, if we are conscious and we are very responsible in the way that we use it, like if you could think of 3 to 4 years before, XR was more or less, the applications were more or less in terms of gaming and entertainment. But now, as more and more people have become conscious and cautiously thinking about how to implement and where to implement, are we seeing multiple applications of XR in learning and development, or training, or human upliftment? So it is all about the choices we make. And on that aspect only, I would now ask Rajkumar ji, like, we all agree, we are at a point where we are all agreeing that XR will change, is a XR is a fundamental technology, and it will change or transform the way we learn. So you being from that sector, you being from the edtech sector, like what do you think are institutions or educational educational bodies ready to adopt these kind of tech in their curriculum, or do we see a gap there as well, or do we have something that might be concerning that part of the ecosystem which we as businesses or enterprises might not be aware of, but we should be aware of if we want XR to actually get penetrated into those ecosystem and bring a be at a place where every one of us can benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. You have mentioned a right question. And as Abhishek ji mentioned that the people are studying from the diagram. That is no more way to learn it. Okay, so they can create, they can visualize it completely from the 3D space. So that is the only thing. As an educator, we have to engage the students. Otherwise, they won't make any. They know everything. They know all the technologies, right? So as an educator, we have to make the sense of learning. Only they have to come to the education sector and then they can learn it. So that's kind of the mandatory also, we have to think it. Yes, because nowadays there are a lot of e-learning platforms are available, and like Coursera, edX. So through that also they can learn it. But what actually we can make as education sector, physically we have place. So what actually we are making a good impact on the learning. So that's what we have to redefine the learning. Surely, that is the only thing. And if we go for education, beyond the education sector, because the companies, they are especially the core companies like machineries and everywhere, they have to introduce the 3D model to the education sector. Whatever the, for example, the even from the science, small education, from the elementary school science to rocket science, so everything we have to build on the 3D. Then only that is actually cost effective. By seeing the rocket engine, it is not possible for all the students, but by creating a 3D model for this, that's really cost effective. And for the Ford engine or whatever the BMW engine for automobile students, that is very cost effective for creating a 3D model. So in that kind of thing, we have to invest it. For education institution, they have to invest for creating a 3D model. Even some basics are needed. The students are itself, they can do it. That is actually learning by doing, not for the, we have to hire the big corporate people. No need. The students itself, they can strive with a simple 3D model, and then they can go with the multiple models. That way we can make some kind of the effectiveness. And the other way is, especially in a medical education, that's engineering also, some people may get some kind of the good content. If you search for the Google or ChatGPT, everywhere we can get the good content. We can, at least we can have the definitions. But medical education, everything is a learning by doing it. We cannot do at least 1,000 operations, then only we can able to do it with the real patients. It's not as simple for the machineries. They don't have any live on it. But we cannot trial with the simple patients, no. So in that, there is I say engineering innovation is needed for the medical education. Engineers also sit together, and then we have to understand their pain and what kind of the things actually we can make it for the maybe from anatomy or veterinary science or whatever the science, medical science we can talk it. And then that we have to embed it in our engineering methods, especially in XR technologies. And then we have to adopt their curriculum in the sense, one part they can study with the learning with the normal theory lectures, and the next part maybe 30 to 40% they have to work with only with XR, because they have to understand the concept. Then whatever the understanding, they have to experience on it. Even actually, I am thinking of during the experience learning, we have to give the assessment. Not only the learning, during the learning, just like how actually we are conducting the quiz. So the same way, how fast they are adopting for the new kind of the, for example, they are doing some machineries. What are the things they should not do, and what are the things they are fastly are doing it. So that kind of the assessment also we have to give it by using machine learning and those things also in future. And especially in education sector, I just want to make a small conclusion here. They have to, first we have to create the awareness among the education sectors, and we have to give the this kind of the workshop, and what they really because we have to make a diagram for the student. I mean, make a persona for the student. See, as a student, for example, a 15 year 17 years old student, how actually is learning capacity? We call it as a 45 minutes he can learn for a single subject. No, even if I give a 45 minutes of YouTube content, he cannot learn it. We have to give a 2 to 3 minutes of the content, then he can able to learn it. Because we have to slice it, all the contents we have to slice it. Not, I mean, learning curve is completely now. It is only we have what we have to give the precise content. Then only they can able to learn it. So that kind of efforts we have to, at least for that we have to make 100 trial and errors, and we have to test with the real students, whatever the age group, and then we can discover for the effective content. Then we can deliver for the large amount of the students. So this is what the challenge is actually. And I mean, this kind of the initiatives, and adopting for the hardware, that is also another one big thing. If you have a mobile, that's okay, and if you go for the costly head mounted displays, and that is also that is actually challenge, but we can make it easily. So we need a Indian based HMD also. So that is what actually we are expecting soon. I think our Indian based companies are looking forward for it. Yeah,
Rightly said. We need like to ensure that the youth benefits from the tech, because it is not about an educational institution or a business company. It is all about that we uplift or we upskill our students so they can be employable and they can become the creators. So it is necessary that we come up to a point where they can get the best education with the best quality tools that are available in the industry. And definitely an Indian HMD is required. So I would like Abhishek ji to add more to this, as in the aspect of when we talk about streamlining education in these institutions, then what challenges do we face from a business perspective, and how readily or aggressively are we working to to make it better, to make things better for both the students as well as the institutions, so we can work towards the upliftment of the youth and create a better future for each one of us.
Yes, thank you, Krishna. So continuation to sir, what sir said, we the student need to start developing their own content, or basically creating the 3D models. Why? Because if we do the practical learning, everything around us is completely 3D. If you want to get into the virtual environment, or if you want to get into the augmented world or an extended reality world, there also the things need to be physical. It should be as physical as how it should be in the real world. So to make it more physical kind of experience, it need to be in 3D. So like some time ago, people are learning, every home, every student are learning coding. In every school there is a program called learn JavaScript, learn C++, learn something. So now the time came where everybody need to learn how to create a 3D content or a 3D world or a environment around that. Because every sector will going to require this 3D asset, 3D content, 3D environment. And that's the reason that generative AI time came, where because we require a huge content, and to produce these kind of content, the AI is also play an important role. And now the student also need to learn these tools so that they can use this generative AI. You can use their 3D generative AI based algorithms and start creating the assets. Nowadays it's become like an NFT or a blockchain based technology where they can monetize their content. They can earn also, and they can learn also together through that. As well as the schools and colleges need to adopt this. Why? Because last, which I have said, the experience based learning is very much important from elementary school to K-12 to engineering to medical, especially healthcare and all special higher education also require all these tools, modern tools. And in the modern tools, the XR is currently the era. In that, the headset is an important role player. So recently everybody have seen that Apple has launched the Vision Pro, and that's again from the West. So we are hearing all the technologies are coming from West. We need to do something so that the technology also come from the Bharat also. So that's where we develop an Ajna lens, or basically we form this company to produce our own technology, which is completely made in Bharat, right? So that's headset name called Ajna XR, which is a true mixed reality headset, and we want to take it to every schools, every colleges, and all the developers and all the enterprises to take this and transform their, as well as for example, if they are in a learning, they can use this as a tool for learning. If they are in an enterprise, they can use to scale their business or to solve the business challenges, problems, complex issues, as well as military. So Ajna Lens started with working initially with the military. So military is the very close part of the Ajna Lens, and they are the first who always adopt the technologies, and they are the first, as well as eager to learn new things, or bringing all these equipments or their complex maintenance programs into XR, basically in these glasses. And now they are doing maintenance as a remote assistant based made, like how the chat GPT support you. It's the same way. There is a guidance, and when they wear the glasses, in front of their all the equipment which has come from foreign, most of the equipments in the early days, or as well as the 60-70% of our ammunitions and equipments are basically from either from Russia or some other country. Now we have started the Make in India, but earlier all the ammunitions and weapons are from those countries, and lots of the manuals are lost, or lots of the manuals have a in Russian language. Now they want to create their own maintenance programs, or they want to create their own thing. So for that they need a guidance. So continuous guidance also come from these glasses. So when they wear the glasses, they get the object, what steps you need to follow. Who will going to produce this steps? Who will going to produce this assets? Who will going to produce this program? That's the future of new software creation, right? Earlier software companies produce the softwares. Now the modern software is extended reality based software, where everything is spatial. That's the reason it's called spatial computing also. So for that, those students need to come forward and make their career into content creations, make their career into this spatial computing based content creations, or a software for spatial computing. Again, we have developed a program called Ajna Creator, which help them others to learn. So those who are from any background, those who are from the commerce backgrounds or arts background, they don't know the programming and all, but still they can able to create this content. And as more and more content, more and more programs will be written into this, more and more industries, even the education sectors, every school also wants these kind of tools, but they don't have then they don't have a technology, they don't have a people who will going to provide them, who will make their curriculum into this, how who will going to convert this whole textbook into this using this kind of technology. So for that also we need more content creator, and that's what we called it Ajna Creator Program, where we create more content creators who will make this tools, make they will going to make this NFTs, they will going to make this spatial computing ready programs or educations. This way we can help the education system also.
Thank you so much, Abhishek ji, for such an insightful uh, thoughts, and I'm sure everybody agrees to that. So now moving forward to Samriddhi ji, one thing that came up during the discussion was the cost of hardware. So you are also in this metaverse space from a long time, and you have connects with multiple businesses as well as certain policy making agencies. So what do you think? Like, even when we are aware that the XR is the need of the time, if we really want to uh, pace up with the speed at which tech is growing, so we need to also align with the offerings. So in that case, we are still behind adoption. If we talk about India, we are still not where we need to be right now. So do you think cost is one of those factors? And if you could add any other thing that might bring to a conclusion that these are the XYZ reasons why we are behind in terms of adopting XR across industries or institutions or any other segment for that matter.
It's actually a very nice question. Um, but if we look at it from a perspective how we adopted computers and laptops, when they came back in 80s, only a few institutions like big companies who were processing a lot of data, they used to have computers and PCs with them. Laptops came much later, around in 2000s, and even then they became a norm somewhere in between 2005 and 10, around that period of time when they became actually very common amongst the office users as well. And if we look at when did it become extremely common for students and children to actually utilize PCs and laptops for almost everything that they do, I'd say that would be around after 2013, 2014, and now in the pandemic era. So these kind of shifts, this kind of hardware shifts and adoptions actually take time. So we have seen that for PCs and laptops to be adopted, it took around 30 years. But on the other hand, smartphones, the adoption took merely around 10 to 15 years, and everyone is using them now. In fact, I'd say that more people own smartphones than PCs. And that, if we take that as a precedent, I would say that it will take some time for hardware to be assimilated within the system. But still, it won't take that much time, like from the previous tech hardware that was there. Also, in terms of for a technology to be adopted, there has to be a specific use case for it. So if we are talking about schools and colleges to actually use them and incorporate them within their entire curriculum, they need to have some kind of course or subject or some specific topic that is only within that particular tech. Otherwise, it becomes an additional cost, which I'm sure that a lot of big universities would be very much happy to incorporate within, make themselves more advanced and to provide a better experience to their students. But still, the even the most premier institutions, that includes IITs and Delhi universities, they try to do a lot of cost cutting. Having worked with them, I can say that they definitely do not invest until and unless they have a very specific purpose or use case for that kind of technology. So another thing you mentioned about having policymakers and institutions which can definitely support these kind of initiatives. Yes, we have been working with Metaverse Council, and Metaverse Council has been funding a lot of these programs. But as of now, like we said, that there has to be a specific use case for hardware to be utilized, right? So we are building that kind of curriculum. We are right now working in the cultural domain, where we are working with historical departments and history divisions and trying to revive the entire human history within an XR environment. So it's a combination of mixed reality and virtual reality. And in that, I would say that creating that kind of highly immersive and hyper quality content is something that takes years to get developed. And specifically, if we are working in a sphere which has to deal with the entire human history, a few years might be a little less time, I'd say. So the things are taking time. Things will definitely take time because we are working on building the foundation for what could be the actual future for everyone. But again, the rate of adoption has pretty much increased. We saw that Web3 was adopted by a lot of people in a very short span of time, and AI saw 100 million users within 4 days. So it's right now, it's not about the adoption, it's more about the utility. If once there is a utility, I don't think adoption is a problem. As far as the pricing is concerned, trust me, pricing is never an issue if the use is there. If you need something, you will buy it. If you want something, you may save for it. So right now, XR hardware is mostly in the want side of the things. You may want it to play games, you may want it to learn something new, but you don't need it. Once you add it in your must need list, then I don't think it's too expensive for anyone. So I guess that's my one bit. Other than that, I would say that if someone is working on the hardware domain specifically and they're also building the content and the curriculum, maybe they should reach out to organizations such as Metaverse Council and other AR VR associations that are there, because they are definitely supporting a lot of these initiatives and funding them as well, as an initiative to promote this entire ecosystem. And that would be one of the best ways of actually going forward, because collaboration is the one thing that will actually help this entire space thrive. And collaborating with one of the best is what some of these association is trying to do. So it's always a good idea to collaborate with others who are doing the same thing.
Totally agree to that. And collaboration is definitely the key, as I rightly mentioned previously as well, because it is not just about one person or the other, but it is all about bringing everyone under the same umbrella so we could all harmoniously push our nation to the forefront and become a leader in this growing tech. So now moving ahead, one topic that came right now was need versus want, and this is something that we applied in every segment, be it just the hardware, but even for small things in our life, we always compare it in the bucket of need versus want. So Rajkumar ji, I would want you to answer this question. Like, what do you think? Like, if we go ahead with this notion that as of now, HMD is under the want stage and not need. So, what do you think? Like, when or based on which use case will this become a need in educational institutions or in the edtech sector? Like, what is that gap that needs to be filled out so that HMD becomes an important aspect? Because from where I see it, HMD is one that provides an immersive experience. And when we talk about learning, so immersion is required. But that is my aspect. But you, from being that segment, you know that segment better. So, what do you think? Where is the gap lying, and when do we expect it to become a need?
Yeah, that's question was very well framed in that meeting itself. I just want to compare with the the mobile phone era. So how the smartphone has slowly come to our pocket, and right now, uh, whatever the hardware actually we are having it, in that only we have the apps. So if we don't have the hardware of GPS, now no more Ola and Uber cabs. So slowly they have, only because of the hardware adoption only, we are able to enjoy the benefit of the software. So that makes sense for every era of the digital things. And also, Samriddhi ji have mentioned that we need some kind of the regulation, something like that. What kind of the proper hardware is needed for every HMD? Now slowly they have, for the due to the competition, many people are introducing with the new kind of the hardware with the infrared or whatever the technology they can invent it. They are using it. But what are the minimum recommend are there for the HMD, head mounted display. That thing we need to finalize it, because as a committee you also can be able to advise them for the MD manufacturer, so that um, there is a multi-platform open source kind of the platforms can be developed to support the hardware. So that is the only thing I need to emphasize on it. And the other thing is web 2 and web 3 era. So web 2 era still 90% or 99% we are in web 2 only. Probably 1% maybe we can tell that's a web 3. Yes, that's we have to accept it. Web 3 is the biggest challenge is for everything we have to create the content. But web 3 is so easy. They have really enjoyed it. They just people, I mean, they just create the YouTube and we are uploading the content. They just create the Facebook, the framework, and we are uploading our photos. And Insta, same, every kind of the web 2, they just create the framework only, but the users are the creators of the content. But in web 3, totally different. For every creator, I mean, the people who creating that multinational company, they also be a part of the content creation, not a user. User is simple user only. User is not a content creator. So here is the biggest challenge, how the web3 kind of the platforms can be able to create the such a platform. The users only create the content, not with the creation of the MNCs. So that is the thing we have to that is the biggest challenge. Slowly we can also make the solution for it. And also how to convert the existing 3D to the good 3D models. For example, if we are creating with some small pixels, how to enhance it for the biggest 3D model. That is software development. What are the kind of the supports we can give it? We just think about probably from year to 2028, from here to 5 years after. So what are the existing contents? What are the existing 3D models? Whether can be able to support them? Since 20 years before the JPEG file, still we can use it. 20 years before GIF file, still we can use it, right? So that's the file format we can use it. But if you go with the 3D world, everything is a different file formats. So where is the regulation for it? So how do we can adapt the same file format from one to other without any quality degradation? So that is also very good, very much challenging. Actually, we have to face it. And yes, slowly we have to make the regulation for the hardware as well as the software. So in a Web3 basis. So that is the only first agenda. And the second was one is, as you said, the quality wise we are improving. Now Web3, I mean the Web 2 is completely software only is in the US, but now Web 3 is everywhere. Especially Dubai-based companies are doing well. I mean, overall, the companies are registered for the Web 3 is Dubai. Now the hub is also something like Dubai. But we have to make in our India, all the Web 2 companies actually, actually I just checked with one website. Maruti Suzuki, I think is. Okay, I just want to make a small, want to see a car. But I have observed that a virtual assistant came with a 3D avatar, and he has explained the features in a small, in our mobile itself. No need of wearing such a huge cost glasses. In mobile itself, a virtual assistant came, and then he has explained about the features of the car. And I can interact through the voice-based communication. You can also try with that. And slowly it is converting just like our normal salespeople are doing it. So every company is needed, especially for the marketing, sales, in terms of company side, and education institutions, at least from the admission to after the placement, whatever the assistant we have to give it, we need to adopt for these kind of the technologies for assisting the people, not only in learning, for every services we have to think forward. There is a lot of use cases are available. So for the regulatory, after that for regulation, there are a lot of use cases are really needed for the Indian companies, and then we have to adopt for it. Okay. Anything else,
No,
Krishna?
no, I think great points you mentioned. I think these are very good things to talk upon and even discuss upon. So I will not add anything to this. I will just ask Abhishek ji to share his views on all the aspects that you covered, be it the requirement of a platform where we can have user generated 3D content to the point wherein we use the same content that is existing now for the XR or for the 3D world. So heading just right over to Abhishek ji.
Good. The questions are framed so nicely. It's coming well. Uh, so one point which we want to cover here is the standardization, right? The standardization is very important factor when we move from one technology to other, or the one era to other era, as we are moving from 2D reality to 3D reality. So everything is getting in 3D, in XR, or in mixed reality, or in virtual reality. For mobile, it may be 2D, because whatever is going to see, the content may be 3D, but as soon as you are seeing through laptops or a mobile, it's again 2D. So if you are seeing a 3D content in 2D screen, it's 2D only. It's not giving you that immersive experience, and that's the reason where people could not able to adapt it fast, because mobile penetration is higher. These XR headsets are very less. So how to increase all these things and how to solve these kind of things? That's where we created a platform where anything, for example, for the 3D content which is created 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and that should also be come into the standard format. So then they just need to put their CAD or their OBJ or their FBX or their XYZ file format, and then it will come in a USD format, which is the standard created by the Pixar and Apples and all the this XR companies who are working together are participating into that. And again, in this also space, which is the company called Kronos, most of the people have I think know. So there also we the Microsoft, Apple, Ajna Lens, basically Dimension NXG, and Facebook, all these people who are into this XR space are collaborating in it's basically like an open source community, where all the hardware companies, all the software companies, all the basic, it's a consortium, right, for standardization of XR. And in that space also we are working very closely together with all these giants, and making this file format standard as a common file format, so that everybody can start drag and drop and put it inside the headset. And as well as if they could not able to create the content, so now we are creating a tool, something called Swastik or something, which is a new tool in creator program, where they just need to put the image and the 3D model will be generated, which is basically a generative AI kind of thing. Automatically they can create, if they have a CAD drawing, so they don't need to do the CAD modeling. So automatically the CAD model will come out, and you just need to see the quality, as well as or the work left is the inspection, that you can compare with your actual versus this 3D which is generated, and then you can modify or you can improve it. So then you don't need to do a lots of work on those domain. So that's where it helps us in the Web3, where the content creation should be faster, not for the just for the company, but for the individual also, because if the companies start creating it, they can create faster because they have the all modern tools. Or if we will not make this modern tools and technology open source or easily available to everybody, every individual will not able to create or will not able to earn it. So we need to provide such tool as an open source, so that they can start creating their own way. as well as how we can reduce the cost of the headset. It's definitely like a ma'am said and the sir said there, that need to be reduced, and she said that if it is a need, then definitely people will afford it. So if you see the mobile segment, we have all type of price range, uh, right, from 5,000, 3,000, 10,000 range mobile headset to 1.1.5 lakh rupees Apple iPhone. So for every segment, for every use, there is a price range. It's the same way. We are working very closely with the Qualcomm to make a headset for every different segment, because every segment doesn't require an each and every sensor or an each and every component to that level. So same way how the mobile has a different sensors and the pricing is different, and different component, different pricing, different processor, different pricing. It's the same way. We working very closely with the Qualcomm to reduce the pricing and to make it affordable for consumer, for students and colleges, and for enterprise there is a different segment, for military there is a different segment, and every individual will get different kind of headset as per their need. But everything will be mixed reality, what we feel it, because mobile is general thing, which from desktop, from mainframe to desktop to laptop and mobile, all thing is computing. So this is also nothing else, it's a computing. If you see, the current headset is an XR2 based everywhere in the world. The chipset which is commonly used by the companies, like for example the Oculus is using in the Quest, or in the Quest 3 which they are going to launch, is also XR2. The Ajna lens which is using the processor is again called XR2, and the Pico and the other companies like Vario, they are also using XR2, and Apple have created their own processor. So same way, the maximum people in the mobile phone also, the Snapdragon is the very common processor by every mobile phone companies. But Qualcomm has made a different chip for different price range. They don't have only one 865 or 880 Snapdragon for every mobile phone. No, but for the headset, there is only one chipset which is called XR2. So we are working closely with the Snapdragon, or basically the Qualcomm, to make a different chipset for different pricing, so that it will do a different operations. It maybe not require all the operations, all the sensors. For example, the current XR2 chipset which we are using in Ajna XR will have all the capability, that eye tracking, the hand tracking, the head tracking, and the spatial computing, all these things. Maybe it's not required for every individual. So to reach it to every, we need to make it very customizable, or maybe in a different price range, and we are working on those things, as well as the content creation tools, like how he said in the Web3. We need to make more tools like that, so that the creation will become very easy for every individual, not just for the company. So that also, as well as creating a platform called Vidya, where they will get the complete, like a Play Store, right? So they are like an Amazon, where they go and put they don't need to put their companies, or they don't need to invest on the complete full infrastructure, or opening a company. So like a cloud kitchen, like everybody can start their restaurant because of Zomato. Every individual can like open a store in Amazon. It's the same way, everyone can start their Web3 business without investing much in the infrastructure or a physical space, because all these new technologies about virtual space. Web3 is where, and like how the man said, it's like how you dream. You can connect to your mind and you can teleport it there. So you don't need to be physically. So all the era which is gone from now where we are standing, the things are changing very fast as soon as this XR and AI come. we as an human is not evolving to that speed. That's where we are seeing that it take time. But if you see the AI, like how ma'am said, in a 4 days it reached to millions and billions of people are now using and transforming their businesses through that. So as soon as we will also adapt these technologies, modern tools, and we can also speed up our processes and operations this way.
So well said and explained. I think every word and every bit was very clear. And we just have one final question to Samriddhi ji, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So, how do you see or how do you foresee XR in next 5 years? Like we have talked a lot about XR, BCI, neural link, and a lot. So, if we just stick to one tech, like we talk about BCI or neural link, they are far fetched idea from where we stand right now, but XR is in a mid adoption kind of state. So how do you see industries adopting the tech in next 5 years?
So, from what I see is, I have been working with a lot of investors at this point who are working in the XR space, and from where we see the industry, the forecast, everything points out that in the next 5 to 6 years, the main focus of the entire investment and the VC world would be towards the semiconductor division. So, in India, I think some of you might be aware that with the Vedanta Group, which is the biggest semiconductor investment company in India, manufacturing company, has invested around 90,000 crore rupees in the new venture where they're going to build the semiconductor chip in house. So right now, like Mr. Abhishek just said, that Qualcomm is having different range of chips for every different functionality, and that is very true because we don't have that kind of freedom when it comes to the XR devices. So, and if we look at it, mobile phones at the end of the day, the Androids, they have very similar functionalities. But this might not be true for the mixed reality and the virtual reality classes. They may have a completely different use case altogether with completely different end use for the person. So if you look at it, some of the classes could have utilization in hyper realistic graphics, so they may have a better GPU. But when you look at some other mixed reality, in that cases, the glasses would have a better motion tracking and better tracking of the person who is utilizing them. So all of this being said, I would say that one of the space that would see the maximum advancement as of now would be the one which will be developing these chips and the processors at the end of the day. Hardware is the one thing that needs to develop in pace with the technology that is being developed. So if the software has to flourish, there has to be a specific hardware that is supporting that technology. Another space that would see the maximum utilization is, I would say that right now, Web3 itself does not have the hardware that it requires. And when I say Web3, I specifically mean the blockchain that is there and the blockchain servers that are in place. So, blockchain servers right now, if people are aware about the mining processes that are involved with specific validation of every single transaction, it requires a lot of data, big data mining capacities. And this was one of the reasons that, if you remember, that why Elon Musk suddenly gave up on Shiba Inu when the price went from up to down in just a span of 1 or 2 months. That and he said that it is because they emit a lot of greenhouse emissions, which is very true. Data mining centers, Bitcoin data mining centers, at an average, they gave out as much as carbon emissions as a country which is, like, I think Netherlands was the example that was quoted by Bloomberg. So if a single data mining center, or maybe a cluster of data mining center for a specific thing, is giving out as much carbon emissions as a country, that definitely is not feasible, not just in terms of environment but also in terms of the cost feasibility. Because at the end of the day, that is one of the main concerns. If someone is going to put up a center or a unit which will be doing a specific process, the main focus would be on the cost to reward ratio, right? So once you have that right, it becomes very easy. And if we look at the Ethereum as of now, they have went from proof of work to proof of stake, which, if you are in the space, you would know that it's not exactly decentralized way of doing things, because proof of stake is something that takes away the freedom from the entire decentralization thought process that was behind the blockchain to a few big companies who will be owning big shares in the liquidity pool of that specific blockchain. And that would make the system, this entire chain, a little less democratic. And this kind of infrastructure that we're having in the Web3 space, you can definitely figure out, if you know all these different elements, that there are a lot of developments that needs to be done in the blockchain space itself. It may look like that we are riding on the high tide and now the time has come for the blockchain, but uh, trust me, we really have a lot of things that we need to work on. Another thing is that I think that XR is already something that is seeing utility, like I said. And hardware is the only limitation right now. Be it cost or be it the technology, hardware itself is the main problem. If you don't have the means to access something, you won't be able to access it no matter how good it is. So once we address this one problem, I think a lot of things are possible in the XR space. However, maybe trying to keep XR from Web3 apart would be the best course forward, because NFTs itself, they do not serve a very specific purpose. And I'm telling this from a point of view where I worked as an NFT researcher. So when an NFT researcher says this, that right now NFTs do not have a lot of utility, trust me, they don't. I created pricing indexes for them when they were at abnormally high level at $1 million. So you can trust me when I say that they'll go to $10, which we did say at that time, and it did happen. So right now, a lot of these technologies that are there will have a huge, tremendous purpose in the future, and we are building for it, all of us together as a community. But focusing on which things should come first, what is the priority, is definitely how we can make it big in the future. And right now, the priority is to get the hardware straight. I think Ajna Lens is doing a great job in building that technology. So hats off to you guys, kudos. Really nice work on indigenizing the entire technology in house. And when it comes to standardizations, I think I have been working with some of the government organizations which are working right now in the standardization processes for both blockchain and VR. Metaverse Council is definitely the association which I'm associated with, and we have been developing these standards. I know that Kronos is also working in this particular domain, but like India likes to have its own regulation for everything. So there will be some Indianized versions of standards that will be there. Despite being an international organization, we have been working with the Indian government closely to have specifically the blockchain standards in a very different way. Um, I think it has much to do with the security, considering that blockchain is how the currencies are going to be in the future, and it has a little less to do with XR as of now. And as far as the XR is concerned, the standards will be there in terms of 3D models, and Metaverse Council is one of the premier institutions which is already working in this sphere. But it will still take time because we don't know what kind of hardware will exist in future. What kind of standard would be compatible with those hardwares is something that you cannot just predict unless you have some concrete information. It requires certain parameters because once you create the standard, it has to be uniform throughout, be it at a national level or be it at an international level. But you still need some foundational parameters. So I think that from my side, the closing statement is that work on the hardwares, and semiconductors is the way forward. It's where all the money is going to lie in the next 2 3 years. So if you are someone who's working in the startup space, you already have a clue where VCs are going to invest in the next 2 3 years. So get your terms straight. It will help.
That was wonderful insight from your end. Just before we close, I would ask Abhishek ji if he has any points to add to this before we end the session.
I think she has covered a maximum and almost everything. We just want to, whosoever are here, it's basically the students or startups or the companies. We have a message that as the technology is changing, they need to invest their time and energies into this so that they can benefit max to max. Like if somebody is interested in XR, VR, they can invest into that. If somebody is interested in Web3, they can invest their time. And if somebody wants to invest in semiconductor, they can. So there, the future is basically moving, and you need to put your focus and your time into that. I think that's the key to be expert in this space.
Great, great. Any ending points you would like to add, Rajkumarji?
Yes, Samruddhi ma'am has clearly defined what are the next 5 years. So it is a really very good content she has delivered, and Abhishek sir ji has given. I mean, he's already doing with the hardware thing. That's really interesting. I need to use it also. Okay, that hardware also I need to use it. So probably we will meet once, and then also with our lab, and we have a XR lab in our institution, and that we are already working with close to our medical college. So there are a lot of use cases already we are working on it, especially to make users, new users. Actually, we have a platform for the metaverse embedded with the social media. So I'm creating a social media kind of the startup. That's for everywhere we are connecting with the avatar, and then we can even with some kind of the IoT also. The social media called as flames. That's we called as a flames, and actually a close team is working on it for that social media, because that only we can able to, because unless until we cannot directly go with EdTech. So we have to create the users to use it, and they have to engage with the content as well as the hardware, and then only we can make for use of the EdTech. So how the TVs are made with the smart board, right? So in that kind of sense, actually we are working on it slowly. For every education sector like us, we have the easily we can adopt for these kind of the technologies. So we will work together as a regulatory body as well as the hardware industry, and with the thing we can test of every hardware in our university. Okay, thank you for this opportunity.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you so much.